Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lunch Table. My name's Evan, joined with Zach and Nick. And today we're going to be doing our free agency grades. Free agency is pretty much wrapped up. There's still a couple players still out there, but for the most part, all the major moves have been done. So we're going to go through the NFC in this episode. Sorry, AFC in this episode. Next episode, we're going to do NFC. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let's dive straight into it. We're going to start off with the AFC East. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills. They won the division going 13-4. And the big moves that they made this offseason was they restructured Josh Allen to a 6-year, $330 million deal, re-signed guys like Greg Rousseau and Khalil Shakir. Then some key additions, they brought in Josh Palmer for 3-year, $36, Joey Bosa on a 1-year, $12 million deal, and Larry Ogunjobi on a 1-year, $8 million deal. So a couple veteran defensive moves there for the Bills. So, Nick, we'll start with you. What are you grading the Bills offseason free agency so far?
Free agency, I think I'll give them C plus. I think. I mean, obviously Josh Allen was going to get his deal. I think it's smart that they restructure his contract. I like the Josh Palmer addition. I don't think they did anything that is like a big standout move, but I don't think they did a move that I'm like not happy with. So I feel like an above average grade for them is the right call. I like the Josh Palmer signing. I like the Joey Bosa signing. Restructuring Josh Allen's contract I feel like was smart, but I don't think they did anything that like blew me out of the water. So I feel like C plus is fair for them.
I'm going to go ahead and give them a B. I think they had a pretty decent offseason so far. Getting Josh Allen done, that's the biggest thing, obviously. I was a pretty big fan of the Joey Bosa addition. I think that's going to be a nice veteran push for him. I really like the Larry Ogunjobi one, too. I witnessed firsthand Larry Ogunjobi play for a little bit there, and he's a good defensive tackle. So I think that's another just decent veteran move. Josh Palmer, that's a solid addition. I think that'll just kind of boost the receiver room a little bit. So I still think that they need to get a 1 receiver-wise, but overall I think they had a pretty good offseason so far. I like it.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a C. I don't think they've really done a whole lot to move the needle. Bringing in Joey Bosa could be good, but, coming off of an injury and, he hasn't been himself really last couple of years just due to injury. So they're hoping he's kind of better. Even when they brought in Von Miller, they're hoping he can kind of, help them out at the edge spot. I do think Josh Palmer can help. He's a solid wide receiver 2 or 3. I don't think he moves the needle a whole lot. I would agree they still need to get a 1, but overall, I mean, solid offseason. I don't think they've done anything that I'm like, oh, that was a bad move. They've just been like, okay, some small moves here, bring in some vet guys that might be able to help them, but as of right now, I just don't know. Right, so I'm going to give them a C, an average grade for their free agency so far. All right, next team, the Miami Dolphins. They finished second in the AFC East, going 8-9. Some of their key additions, they've been pretty quiet. They signed Nick Westbrook-Ikine for 2 years, $6.5 million. Brought in Alexander Madison and offensive lineman James Daniels for 3 years, $24 million. So, Nick, what do you grade Dolphins?
I think I'm gonna give them a slightly below average grade. I think I'll give them a C minus. I'm not like a huge fan of Javon Holland, but I think it is a net negative that they did lose him. James Daniels is okay on the offensive line, but I don't think they really made a ton of great moves to kind of catch up with Buffalo. And Tyreek Hill's not getting any younger. Tua is Tua, so kind of weird to what to expect with him if his brain is still intact. The Nick Westbrook-Ikine is like the guy that will have 2 catches for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns like once a month. So I don't think that really moves the needle a whole lot for them. They didn't egregiously overpay on anyone, so that's why I'm not giving them a lower grade, but it's like blah for me. So I'm going to give them a C minus.
Yeah, I was also going to probably give them a C minus. I just don't think they've done anything. They've been quiet nothing really stands out to me. Like you guys said with Nick,
Westbrook Akine.
He's a guy that is gonna randomly score 3 touchdowns. It's
like playing the lottery with him.
Yeah, I mean, C minus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. C minus. They really haven't done anything noteworthy. Losing Javon Holland. I mean, they probably weren't going to be able to pay him anyway, but a young safety was pretty good. Definitely is probably going to hurt them, but they haven't really done much. I mean, just little moves here and there, but really nothing to really move the needle much. So, yeah, it's been okay. Nothing too crazy. So, yeah, C minus I think is fair. All right, next team, the New York Jets. They finished 5-12 in the AFC East. Their key additions was they brought in Justin Fields for a 2-year, $40 million deal, and that's really about it.
Yeah, I think this grade reflects how you feel about Justin Fields, and I hate saying this, but I'm not super high on him, so I'm gonna give the Jets a D+. They kind of done nothing else outside of bringing in Justin Fields. I think there's a non-0% chance that he turns into a quality starter now that he's reunited with Garrett Wilson and he's got the most talent around him in his career, but the excuses are out. If he does not perform, he will not be a starter in the NFL going forward. And I don't think he's a great quarterback at the NFL level, which sucks because he's my all-time favorite Buckeye. But I'm not a huge fan of him at the NFL level, so I'm gonna give him a D+.
Braxton Miller? You like Justin Fields better than Braxton Miller?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I've had this conversation with you guys
Right.
before.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give him a D. They've literally done nothing except bring in Justin Fields.
And I think 40 mil over 2 years is like a lot of money too.
Yeah, Nick said everything that needs to be said with the Jets here. They've done literally nothing except bring in a guy who, as unfortunate as it is, probably is just not going to be a quality starter. So, D.
Yeah, I'm going D as well. Really, the only move they did, like you guys both said, Justin Fields, and yeah, it really hinges if Justin Fields can be a starter in the NFL. You know, we've seen some flashes, we've seen some bad plays, but he's reuniting with his college receiver in Garrett Wilson. He's got Breece Hall. He has no shortage of talent on this offense. This is probably the most talented offense he's played with since he's been in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really his last shot.
Yeah.
And so I think we could look at this grade later if he pans out and be like, you know, maybe the 2-year $40 million wasn't too bad because he actually panned out to be decent. But if he does what past Jets quarterback has and, you know, sucks, then they're going to be back to the drawing board again quarterback-wise.
They're going to be in the same spot in about 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would love just as much as the next guy to see Justin Fields succeed. I just don't know that I've seen enough yet that is proving to me that he is going to be a long-term starter.
And we're running out of time to figure
But
it out.
He is young. He's only about 24 or 25, so there is hope with the age. We'll see.
But, I mean, like, this is what, year 5 of him in the
he's
NFL?
been in the league for a while. So
Yeah,
that's why
I feel
it's
like
kinda
at this point, if you're not improving, you're just not going to be the guy.
I would say he
in the
improved
NFL.
with the Steelers, though.
He didn't get enough to warrant. Like, I don't know if we can make a judgment call off of 5 games?
yeah.
Or however long it
I
was.
don't know. I hope for the best, but I'm going to say it's just a D right now.
Fair. All right, last team in the AFC East, the New England Patriots went 4-13, but they had the most cap space in the NFL, and they were big spenders this offseason, signing Milton Williams to a 4-year deal, Carlton Davis to a 3-year deal, Harold Landry to a 3-year deal, Morgan Moses to a 3-year deal, Robert Spillane to a 3-year deal. They brought in Stephon Diggs on a 3-year deal as well recently. Lots of moves for the Patriots, kind of rehauling that whole team. Nick, what is your grade?
I think they easily have had the best offense, not the best offense, the best off season so far in the AFC East. They've added a bunch of talent. Like you said, they had the most cap space in the NFL. I'm a big fan of the Milton Williams pickup. I think 4 years, 104 is a good good price tag for him. Stephon Diggs is still a quality receiver, even though I don't know when he's going to play. But I think he could help out Drake May in his second year. Carlton Davis is a solid corner. They got a lot of veteran depth. They've got a top 3 pick. I think they did everything right this offseason with the cap space that they have. Build the foundations for your franchise quarterback. I'm gonna give them an A. I thought they have had a really good free agency cycle.
Yeah, so in our mock draft, I went pretty in depth about my thoughts on the Patriots offseason so far. So check that out for a more extended answer. But I am a
good plug.
Yeah,
good plug, Weaver.
I am a enormous fan of what the Patriots have done so far this offseason. I'm right there with Nick. This is absolutely an A offseason for me. This is I have loved what the Patriots have done so far. Even with Stephon Diggs, whenever he comes back, I don't think he's a number 1 anymore, but I think he's still got some stuff left in the
still
tank.
A net positive. He's still better than what the Patriots had prior.
Yeah, I think that he is going to be a solid wide receiver 2 for this team. He's got some left in the tank, in my opinion. So I am a huge fan of this. Carlton Davis is a guy that I said the Bengals should have signed. So I like him. Milton Williams is a stud on the defensive interior. I have loved this Patriots offseason. They have done. If I was in the Patriots' shoes and you give me $100 million in cap, they've done what I would have done. I've been a really, really big fan of this. The last step to it is the draft. And as I said just a second ago, check out the mock draft to see who I have them picking. And if they go this route, I'm a big fan of it. So,
which we'll also be doing another mock draft probably here in a couple of weeks.
I mean, to be honest,
for sure.
Either way they go in the draft at 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
4. Whether they go receiver or they go offensive tackle, I think it's a win either way.
You can see the argument for both sides.
So I have loved this Patriots offseason, especially around a rookie going into second year quarterback. Definitely
got Mike Vrabel as their head coach too.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's huge too. Yeah, this is an A. This is an easy A.
Yeah. I'm right there with you guys. I'm giving him an A as well. Bringing in Milton Williams, I think, definitely helps their interior pass rush. He's young, really good for the Eagles, and with Christian Barmore, questionable with some health issues. I think he's going to solidify that interior as well. Bringing Harold Landry to, he has ties with Mike Vrabel, who's with the Titans. Carlton Davis has always been a solid slot guy. He's been really good. And then going out and get Stephon Diggs, I think is a big piece because. Yes, he's getting old and coming off of an injury, but the Patriots need anything at wide receiver. They have nothing. So bringing in a guy who is a veteran, and you're hoping that, him and Drake can mesh well. My only gripe with them in the offseason is they didn't really address the offensive line as much as I would have hoped, but I still think overall, they did well. And like you guys said, in the draft, always a place to beef up the trenches. So I think they still could address it in the draft, but I would have liked them to spend a little bit on the offensive line because their offensive line is pretty bad. But overall, I like what they've been doing so far. All right, let's move on to the AFC North. We're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. They won the AFC North last year, going 12-5, and they didn't do too many moves, but kind of just retained some of their guys. They retained Ronnie Stanley for 3 years, $60 million, brought back Patrick Ricard, and signed DeAndre Hopkins for 1 year, $6 million. So, Nick, what are you grading the Ravens offseason? So
I'm gonna give them a C. I think retaining Ronnie Stanley was huge for him, but because of their cap situation, outside of that, they couldn't do much. Bringing in D-Hop is something, but he didn't really do much with the Chiefs last year, so. He's kind of past it, so I don't think anything that they did is going to move the needle for or against where they already are. So I'm going to give them a C.
I'm going to give them a C minus for really the same reasons. I don't think they did anything that's going to move the needle for them. Now, saying that, they're already a very good team. So
they don't need to move the needle.
Yeah, I don't think. I just don't think they've done anything that's going to put them over the edge, personally. So I'm going to go with a C minus. I don't think D-Hop is really going to change much for their passing attack. I'll go with the C minus.
Yeah, I'll go C. like you guys said, they didn't really have a lot of cap space, and they're already a great team, so there wasn't really a whole lot they needed to do. Retain their left tackle, which was huge because they would have had a bit of a problem if he would have left. And kind of just kept their guys. D-Hop doesn't do anything. This team was already great, and they didn't really make any huge moves to upgrade. But a team that did make some big moves was the Steelers. They finished second in the AFC North, going 10-7. They traded for DK Metcalf and then signed him to a 5-year, $150 million deal. They also brought in Darius Slay. Those are their two main pickups, but they did lose Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, so quarterback's a big question mark for them. So, Nick, how are you grading their free agency
I
period?
don't think it's a fair grade because I don't know what the results of this are going to be because they don't have a quarterback right now. Based on this, I think I'm going to give them a C minus. I'm gonna give him a D plus because we were talking about this earlier. I think the idea of DK Metcalf is better than DK Metcalf actually is, and I don't think he meshes super well with what they have already going on. I think 150 mil is a lot of money. It is over 5 years, so they do have him for an extended period of time. It's about 30 mil a year, but now they're kind of locked in with DK Metcalf, and like I said, he hasn't really shown his ceiling. He's still a good receiver, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if he's really going to make them contenders. And I feel like if you're giving a guy 150 mil over 5 years, you expect to be a team that can contend, and I don't think the Steelers are that right now. And with their quarterback situation, I don't think they're going to reap the rewards of this season. So I'm gonna give them a D plus. I'm struggling to see the direction that they're going right now.
Yeah, I said this in the last podcast. I don't think anything they've done changes anything with the Steelers. I'm going to give them a D. I think, to be honest with you, I think they got worse this offseason so far. They don't have a quarterback. They literally don't have a quarterback. So I'm going to give them a D. I don't think they've done really anything that's worth much. I mean, the DK Metcalf trade has been hyped up so much, but I honestly don't really think that's going to be that huge. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a D.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a D plus, but it's really an incomplete grade right now just because the fact that they haven't gotten a quarterback yet, and they're in talks with potentially getting Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what he's going to decide, but
is that even a big deal though?
No.
If they get Aaron Rodgers,
yeah,
I'll bump it to a D plus to a C minus, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't move the needle a lot, but it's better than Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
But I mean, bringing DK is fine. They traded a second-round pick for him, which is a little high, but I mean, gave him $30 million a year, cool. But he's basically the same as George Pickens. We talked about this in our last episode. And yeah, I mean, I think Darius Slay could help them because they did need some corner help, and Darius Slay's been decent, at least recently. He's been fairly good with the Eagles, but we'll see. Like you said, Zach, I'm not scared of the Steelers, and I don't think they really did any moves to move the needle really super large. I think they're going to be roughly around the same team they were last year. All right, now we're going to go to me and Zach's Cincinnati Bengals. They finished 9-8, third in the AFC North. And they have had an interesting offseason, to say the least. Their biggest moves were re-signing their two star wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, both got record deals for 4 years. They re-signed B.J. Hill for 3 years, Mike Gesicki for 3 years, and then they signed Oren Burks for 2 years, and they brought in T.J. Slayton for 2 years. So, Zach, we'll start with you since you're the Bengals fan. What are you grading their free agency period so far?
So, first of all, I think that the number one thing that the Bengals needed to do this offseason was retain. And I think that they have retained everything that they need to except for one player. There's one outstanding player, Trey Hendrickson. But if we filmed this 2 weeks ago, I would give the Bengals an F. But now, I'm going to probably go with a B. I think that I'll go with a B plus. I'll go with a B plus. And I think that that's a little bit of an incomplete grade as well because I think the biggest thing that hinges now is the draft. So, like I said, they hindered the guys, or they retained the guys that they needed to retain. Because of that, got to draft well. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that's huge. And that has ramifications beyond just for the sake of the offense. That's going to keep Joe Burrow happy. And if Joe Burrow is not happy, we're screwed.
You're cooked.
Yeah. So these, re-signing both of these players, not only is it good because our offense is far better with those two players, but because the franchise quarterback, who is the second best quarterback in the NFL, remains happy. So that's what you want to see. I like the addition of the defensive tackle from the Packers. I think that's a pretty good addition. I think that'll definitely help bulk up the defensive interior because that was a huge issue, Lord. And it seems like he's more of a run stopper, which is good. And then obviously
desperately needed.
Yeah. And then obviously retaining B.J. Hill, I think that's huge too because B.J. Hill is a very good defensive interior player as well. So I think those are both good signings. Oren Burks, obviously linebacker from the Eagles, that's a needed position with Jermaine Pratt and a couple other linebackers kind of not playing super great. Logan Wilson will be back and healthy, so that's going to be a pretty good linebacker duo, I think. I think overall it's a B plus. I like what they've done so far. I think signing that guard / center from the Saints, I think just adds another rotational piece, a little bit more depth, which is good. I think that the places that they can improve is first and foremost, you got to re-sign Trey Hendrickson. If they re-sign Trey Hendrickson, I think I might even bump this to an A minus. But that's got to be the number one thing on this list that's remaining. And then I think I would have liked to have seen more work on the offensive line, maybe. With Cordell Volson heading out, Alex Kappa heading out, which is good. I think the offensive line still needs to be retooled a little bit. You could always use some more defensive backs, but I think overall, I think the Bengals have done so far what needs to be done, pending one outstanding guy, Trey Hendrickson. So I'll give it a B plus.
Nick.
I think the Bengals have had by far the most contentious offseason in the entire NFL. I think that you either think what they're doing is great or you think what they're doing is dumb. And I don't know.
Both sides.
I don't know what to believe. Here's my thing. I understand where you're coming from, retaining your best players. Okay? I fully understand that. But your team went 9-8 last year. You know what I'm saying? And you're putting 42% of your cap into 3 players. Which let me clarify. I'm not saying the Bengals defense has to be elite because it doesn't. They have to be serviceable. Which if they draft well, they will be serviceable.
Yeah.
But the Cincinnati Bengals have a history of not drafting well on the defensive side of the football.
Or any side of the football.
I don't know about any. Their offenses. They've had a few good. They have Anthony Munoz, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, but I mean anyone could have done that.
T. Higgins.
Yeah, T. Higgins. T. Higgins was a good pick. Chase Brown was a solid pick.
Chase Brown was
I think they're a lot better drafting offensive talent than defensive talent, but they need defense.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're gonna give Jamar Chase's contract, obviously, but if you're gonna re-sign T. Higgins, why are you giving Mike Gesicki $25.5 million? Like, I just don't get that. I get you need a tight end, but Mike Gesicki is not like a needle mover at the tight end position. So I'm kind of confused at that. I do think because Jermaine Burton was just objectively awful in every possible facet last year, I think re-signing T. Higgins was the correct move. But I don't. If they get Trey Hendrickson back, cool, awesome. He's one of the best edge rushers in football, but even with him being there, your defense was abysmal last year.
They made improvements where it needed to be made, though.
In theory,
somewhat.
just like last year, and then they didn't. I think I'm gonna. I don't think it's fit. Like, I think I'm gonna give them a C plus right now. I don't know. I think if they do make it back to true contention, we'll look back at this and be like, this is a great offseason. They did exactly what they needed to do. But I don't have faith that they're going to make that leap next year as of right now. Because their defense is still, as of right now, so horrendous.
Well, I mean, what you're doing is you're doing what the Eagles do. You're doing what the Chiefs do. You're basically just putting pressure on yourself to hit in the draft.
Yeah, I will say this is a new era of Bengals football. They are actually putting faith in their front office to make the right moves.
And that's partially why I think I would give it a higher grade. Not as much, not in and of itself because of the guys we have, but also just because I think it shows that the front office is actually turning a page now. Like, well,
I'm not judging the front office. I'm judging the free agency.
Like they're actually willing to go out and spend money on guys they need to, and I think that's a little bit encouraging.
They're willing to do the bare minimum to field a contending team,
and they used to not be. So, but I think ultimately what you're doing here is you're going the route of the Eagles and the Chiefs. If you hit in the draft, you're going to be very, very good. You got to hit the draft.
Are the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Chiefs though?
That's what I'm saying. You got to hit the draft. If they hit the draft, they are absolutely contenders. But you got to hit the draft.
If they don't hit the draft, though, they've kind of locked themselves into mediocrity for the rest of the Burrow Chase tenure, though.
Yes.
I feel like.
Probably. So that's ultimately what it hinges on. But I think that was the right move, though. I think that was what you had to do.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a C plus as well, just because I think they did what they had to do and what was expected of them. Going into the offseason, they were expected to re-sign Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They were expected to bring back guys like Mike Gesicki, B.J. Hill, and they brought in T.J. Slayton, and Owen Burks, who I like, but I don't know how far they really pushed the needle. But I think really, like you said, Zach, this was a offseason of retaining, and I think they did that. But I mean, I know me and you have had this conversation multiple times. They would have done this a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
we
if they
would
would have
have
done
this
this last
problem,
offseason,
and
like we all
they would have
said
saved themselves a lot of money. So because they waited around a little bit, it cost them a little bit more. So I'm all for paying T and Jamar. I would have done that in a heartbeat. But they've kind of set themselves up, like you guys have been saying, where you have to hit the draft, where you have to hit on the draft, or you're gonna have some issues. So I think it's been what I expected from the offseason. They've done what the moves that I thought they should have. I do think they need to bring in a guard still. I think that's still a big need. And they've kind of not brought some guys in that I thought that they very well could have and should have. But, if they can get Trey done, then that would probably bring me up a little bit, just because you retained the big three you needed to, and so forth. So I think it's been what I've expected them to do. They've done what they've done, like you guys said, they've done the bare minimum they needed to do to continue to be a good team. So staying in Ohio, we got the Cleveland Browns. They went 3-14 this year. They are not a great team, but they're more looking into the draft, and they didn't really make a whole lot of moves. But their biggest move was re-signing Myles Garrett to a 4-year, $160 million deal. They traded for Kenny Pickett, and they signed Tevin Jenkins for a year. But basically, Myles Garrett was the biggest thing for them. So, Nick, what are you grading the Browns?
I'm going to give them a B- purely because I thought Myles Garrett was gone. When he announced that he was traded, I was almost 100% convinced that he was going to be on a new team. I thought that was going to be one of the biggest storylines of the offseason, was what team gets Myles Garrett. And then the fact that the Browns ended up re-signing Myles Garrett, I think is huge for them. And shows that they're not really ready to just do a full reset. Whether that's smart or not, that depends on the person. Kenny Pickett's not going to get anyone excited. It's Kenny Pickett. I still don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be. But I thought Myles Garrett was a goner, and the fact that he is still going to be a Cleveland Brown for the foreseeable future, I think is massive for them. So I'll give him a B minus for that alone.
I think I'm going to go ahead and give him a C plus because outside of Myles Garrett, I don't think they did anything that is worth anything. But the Myles Garrett thing is significant. So
re-signing Myles Garrett is a big deal in and of itself.
Yeah. So that's why I'm giving him a C plus. Essentially, I'm just giving him a C plus solely because of that one move.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a C plus as well. I think retaining Myles Garrett was huge. I can see this side that people were saying where you trade him and try to rebuild, but it's unlike the NBA. It's tough to trade your best player away and immediately reap the benefits from that.
Plus, Myles Garrett's one of the best edge rushers in NFL history.
Yes,
this is a once in a generation type player at a very premium position. You can't just give that away.
Yeah, so I think it was a good move to re-sign him. And that, bringing in Kenny Pickett doesn't do anything for me. Deshaun Watson has these guys handcuffed until his contract runs out, and then we can start talking about them being able to dig themselves out of this cap hole that they've digged themselves into. But yeah, they can't do anything until that Deshaun Watson contract is up. So they're going to be, not a great team until he's gone. So. All right, let's move to the AFC South. We're going to start with the Houston Texans, who won the division. They went 10-7. They've had an interesting offseason so far. They traded for Christian Kirk and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They got both of those, Kirk from the Jags and Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles, but they traded away Laramie Tunsil and Ed Ingram. And really haven't signed anybody super noteworthy. So really the big thing is they've lost some key offensive line pieces on offensive line that was already pretty rough. So Nick, what do you
this is not Colts biased, but I'm going to give them a D minus. I think they've had one of the worst off seasons in the entire NFL. Their biggest issue was offensive line, and they lost Laramie Tunsil, who was by far their best O-lineman, and they traded away another starting offensive lineman. The only reason they're not getting an F is because I do think the Christian Kirk move is good. I think it was necessary because of their receiver issues, but I think it was a good move. And they did re-sign Danielle Hunter, which I think is huge for them with the pairing of him and Will Anderson. But their offensive line, which is already arguably the worst in the league last year, is significantly worse than it was. And I think that is inexcusable from a Texans perspective. We talked about this earlier. I don't know if it's going to stop them from winning the division because the AFC South is kind of a crapshoot right now. But I think it's just they've objectively had a bad free agency. So I'm going to give them a D minus.
I'm going to give them an F plus. Are we doing plus and minuses?
No, we're not doing F plus or minus.
F plus.
Okay.
F.
All right. I'm going to give these guys an F. I agree that I think they have also. I also think they've had one of the worst, if not the worst, free agencies in the entire league so far. Basically, just decimating their offensive line even worse than it was. I don't really think the Christian Kirk move is that huge. I think the Texans have had a literally putrid offseason.
The opposite of their offseason from last year.
Yeah, for sure.
If I was a Texans fan, I would be actively vomiting. So I think that this is probably the worst thing that I've seen so far this offseason. So they are getting an F. They have done a very, very bad job.
Yeah. I'm going to give them a D minus. Pretty much like you guys said. Losing Laramie Tunsil is huge. And then replacing him with Cam Robinson is a massive downgrade. And then you had an offensive line that was already really bad and had CJ Stroud running for his life, and you made it worse. So yeah, I don't see the direction with that. I do like the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade. I do think he can help their secondary a lot, which already is really good with guys like Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter. So that defense is going to be elite, but Stroud's going to be running for his life and probably get sacked 70, 80 times or whatever. So I mean, how you can't. I mean, me and Weave have seen this full hand. It takes.
I've seen it time and time again
Yeah,
too.
it takes
My
a
You
lot.
haven't had it as bad as us.
My franchise quarterback literally quit because we gave him
My Hall
nothing.
of Fame quarterback lost Super Bowl because of it.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot to overcome bad offensive line play, and if CJ Stroud can do it, we'll see.
He literally quit because we didn't give him support. He was dying every year.
I think.
Well,
I
my
think Nick
Hall of
wins
Fame
that one.
quarterback has been screwed multiple times and has had multiple seasons.
My Hall of Fame quarterback openly quit on the team.
Nah, he ain't Hall of Fame. What are you talking about?
Andrew Luck was a Hall of Fame talent. If Andrew Luck played his entire career, he would absolutely made the Hall of Fame.
He's a Hall of Fame talent, but he quit.
I think Nick wins that one.
I win.
No, he doesn't. Are you serious? We lost the Super Bowl because of that.
As of March
Yeah,
27th,
but our
2025,
franchise quarterback
I win this argument.
hasn't
At
actively
least
retired.
you still have him.
Because that would literally be like if Joe Burrow retired like this year. That's how Andrew Luck was.
It wouldn't shock me.
But I would not be happy.
I mean, what are you talking about? I don't know this.
Speaking of the Colts, they finished 8-9, second in the division, and they made some moves.
They did.
They signed Cam Bynum for 4 years, $60 million. Charvarius Ward for 3 years, $60 million. Daniel Jones for 1 year. They lost a couple guys on the offensive line, but overall, Nick, as a Colts fan, what are you grading your guys' free agency?
I thought they were having a pretty solid free agency for the first couple days of it. I'm a big fan of the Cam Bynum I'm a really big fan of the Charvarius Ward signing. I think he's one of the more underrated corners in the league. I think he had a bit of a down year because, like, if you know about his personal life, it was rough. I think his child passed away last season, so I'm sure his head wasn't fully in the game in terms of football, which is completely understandable. But I think he's one of the most underrated corners in the league. I'm a big fan of the Charvarius Ward signing. I'm also a big fan of the Cam Bynum signing. I think he fits Lou Anarumo's scheme to a T. I think he's a very versatile safety that can get downhill, which I'm a big fan of. And he's like 26, so he should only get better with age. And then we willingly gave Daniel Jones $14 million. So that kind of, I'm not going to say destroyed all of my good faith for the free agency, but it did take a good chunk out of a lot of it. The only positive in 14, why did they give him 14? Why? Anyways, the only positive is that if Anthony Richardson loses a quarterback competition to Daniel Jones in the year 2025, he was never the guy. Okay, and that's is what it is. If that's the case, I don't think he's going to, because I
think there's a chance.
I don't think he's going to. Okay, I just don't think he's going to.
I think he might.
But I think they get a C- from me. Before the Daniel Jones signing, I probably would have given him a B. I think they had an objectively good free agency, but I'm not a fan of the Daniel Jones signing, man. I'm just not. Who knows? They might still get like a Trey Hendrickson. They're still in play for that, I've heard. But if they do
Maybe
that,
Jermaine Pratt.
Yeah.
You can have Jermaine Pratt, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
for Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah,
and a draft pick.
We'll talk about that. Yeah,
You're first.
Delusional. Anyways, yeah, they'll get a C- from me. Yeah. Why'd they sign
Nick,
Daniel Jones?
Are you ready for Weaver's incoming F grade?
They did not have an F offseason. They objectively improved as a team.
Just his Colts hater grade.
Actual
we
Colts
got a Burrow
bias.
Bengals hater over here too.
I am not a Burrow hater. You have to stop with this narrative.
We've had this conversation a million times.
It's like a
right,
once
Zach.
every other day thing at this point.
What's your grade, Zach?
All right, I'm gonna actually probably give these guys a B- because I do actually think they had a pretty good offseason. The Daniel Jones signing was it gave me a good laugh, so I'm gonna count that as a good.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
So, But yeah, I think Charvarius Ward is actually a very good addition. He was a guy that another guy that I was saying the Bengals should probably look at. So I like that for them. I think they made additions in places that they needed to improve. I mean, defensive back, one of the biggest areas of it needed improvement, and I think they hit that with what's his name, Byard.
Cam Bynum
Cam Bynum,
and
Bynum,
Charvarius
right.
Ward.
And Charvarius Ward. So I think it was really overall a pretty good offseason.
Hot seat Chris Ballard's coming out swinging, baby.
I mean,
maybe he'll win the division for the first time in a decade. Who knows?
Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Said maybe.
The Daniel Jones signing just really is a shocker. I think it's hilarious. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure why that happened. But I do think there's a chance that Daniel Jones is the QB1 for the Colts this fall.
Don't say that to me, though.
Hey, did you see what he said? He said Patrick Mahomes had the last 5. I have the next 5.
Yeah. He said that. That's a real quote from Daniel Jones.
That's like Josh Rosen saying
they made 9 mistakes.
They made 9 mistakes ahead of me. just to be
Jones
cut,
turns
like,
his
the
career around in
after.
Indianapolis. Imagine I'm actually defending Daniel Jones's play come like November.
No, Daniel Jones is really bad. I mean, honestly, the Colts have 31 and 32 in the NFL right now.
Quite literally the 2 worst quarterbacks last year in terms of QBR.
Nick will be looking at this like 5 years from now. You don't know how good Colts Daniel Jones was.
So yeah, Daniel Jones is really bad, but I think he's going to be their QB1 because that just shows how completely horrible AR is. But I'll give him a B though.
A B, okay.
A B minus, my bad.
B minus. Yeah. All right. I'm going to give him a C. I think they've done all right. I like the Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum signing. I think those are both good. They desperately needed corner help, secondary help. That helps them. Daniel Jones, sure, whatever.
14 mil.
Yeah, that's
fully
that's
guaranteed. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot. But it's for 1 year, so it's whatever. If he doesn't,
1 year too many, dog.
He's gonna be their starter. I'm telling you.
Don't tell me that.
But yeah, no, I mean nothing too. I like the start of it, but yeah, the Daniel Jones kind of brings it down a little bit. But
I'm not too upset at their O-line signings because they actually have pretty good O-line depth. Losing Will Fries sucks, but
yeah,
I'm okay losing Will Fries by getting Cam Bynum and Charvarius Ward. That's a trade I'd be willing to make.
What are you gonna do when Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback week 1 in September?
Drink an excessive amount of alcohol.
An excessive amount.
All right, let's move on to the Jags. They finished 3rd in the AFC South, going 4-13. They made some moves, but majority of their moves were cutting guys. They traded Christian Kirk, cut Brandon Scherf and Evan Ingram. They signed Patrick McCarry for a 3-year deal, Jordan Lewis for a 3-year deal, Jamie Brown for a 1-year deal. So nothing really too crazy for them. So Nick, we'll start with you again. What are you grading them?
I actually am a bit of a fan of the direction that they took this offseason. I think they cut a lot of dead weight with Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. They're solid pieces, but with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, you don't want to be solid. You want to be potentially contending in the AFC. So I think they were paying too much money for him. I think cutting him was the right move. They'll get spots elsewhere. Like we said, Christian Kirk is with the Texans now. But I think I'll give him a B minus just because I don't think they really signed anyone too out there. But I like the Liam Cohen hire. I like that they're going in a younger direction. I think they cut a lot of dead weight. I think the Jags could be a team that we've said it a couple times now, but turning around next year, win a bunch of games that are close because they lost a bunch of games that were close this year. So yeah, I'll give them a B minus. I'm a fan of the direction that they took this offseason.
I think I'm going to give them a C plus. I would say they had a pretty solid offseason. I don't think they really did anything huge, but I think that, like you said, they cut some dead weight. I think Liam Cohen could be a good hire. Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think you're really just going to be banking on the upside of Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas here, and guys on defense like Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. So I think they had a solid offseason. I'll give them a C+ so far.
I'm going to go B-. I think cutting those guys was the right move. You're just cutting guys who were kind of on the older side, you were paying a lot, which, with the young team that they have with a new coach, Trevor Lawrence, all those guys, kind of just cutting the dead weight, I think was necessary. They didn't really bring anybody that I was like, ooh, like that might make them like a really good team, but I think Liam Cohen should be able to help Trevor Lawrence. You're hoping Trevor Lawrence can, get back to what he was a couple years ago. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty solid. I think mainly getting rid of the dead weight, I think helped a lot for sure. Also, shout out Hunter Green for throwing 5 innings and having 8 strikeouts. Good stuff.
Are the Reds still winning? Is it 3-2 still or no?
Yeah, it's 3-2.
Okay.
Last team in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans. They finished 3-14. They're looking more to the draft, but they did make some moves. They brought in Dan Moore Jr. from the Steelers for 4 years, $82 million. Brought in Kevin Zeitler for 1 year, $9 million. Those are mainly their two big ones. Getting some offensive line help, which probably means that they're going to be going quarterback with that first overall pick. So, Nick, what are your thoughts?
I'm giving them a D. The Dan Moore signing 4 years for $82 million is crazy. I don't know what it is with the Titans just overpaying average players at their position over the past couple years, but Dan Moore is not a $20 million a year caliber offensive lineman. He's not. Ask any Steelers fan, and he was arguably their worst O-lineman last year. You gave him $20 million a year. That's crazy to me. And I mean that's all they did. Like I don't. Okay, Cody Barton, that's cool, I guess. Xavier Woods, he's an okay safety. Draymond Jones is a decent. They got Van Jefferson, like it's not complete because we still have to see what they do with that first overall pick. That could change a whole lot of stuff. But I don't think Dan Moore is a $20 million a year caliber offensive lineman. I think that was an egregious overpay. So that's really the driving factor on why I'm giving them a D. Not trying to give Titans bias. I just don't like the Dan Moore signing, much like I didn't like the Calvin Ridley signing last year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and give him a D+. I don't know. I got nothing.
Dan Moore was not good. He was not good for the Steelers last year.
Anything. I think they've done nothing, and they were the worst team in the NFL last year. So I'm going to give him a D+.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a D. I agree with you, Nick. I don't like the Dan Moore signing. He was not great. The Steelers' worst offensive lineman. They paid him big money. Kevin Zeitler's still a good guard, even though he's getting up there in age, but he's a guy that I wish the Bengals would have gotten. But I guess it's good that they're addressing the trenches. We'll see if they actually work, but I don't agree with the Dan Moore signing, but they might be able to save themselves in the draft, if Cam Ward or if they go hits. All right, last division in the AFC. Let's go in the AFC West. We're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl runner-up, which haven't been able to say that in a while.
Thankfully.
They franchise tagged Trey Smith, re-signed Nick Bolton for 3 years, $45 million, re-signed Hollywood Brown and Kareem Hunt for a year. Didn't bring in really anybody. But they lost some offensive line help, right? Or am I tripping?
Yes.
Basically it was re-signing their guys and kind of just keeping that core together. So Nick, what do you grade them?
I'll give them a B, I think. I think retaining Nick Bolton and Trey Smith was huge for them because I didn't know if they were going to be able to bring both of them back. I'm not sure how I feel about Trey Smith just in their future plans. I think he's a good guard, but I don't think he's like a great guard. And when you've got Patrick Mahomes, like you kind of need cheap, great players in order to keep, winning what they do. Chris Jones, they restructured his deal. They restructured Pat Mahomes' deal. Nick Bolton's a solid linebacker. He's very similar to Trey Smith, where he's good and he's young, but he's not great. And right now you kind of need great players at those positions to, keep contending for Super Bowls. I think it's good that they brought them back, but I don't know if we're gonna see the Chiefs make it back to the Super Bowl. We might. This is a different conversation for a different day, but I think they might take a step down because I don't really think that they improved their team at all. But I think bringing back Nick Bolton and Trey Smith was a good move for them, so I'll give them a B.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go B minus. The two moves, those two moves that they made, definitely helpful for both sides of the ball. But I don't think they've really done much else. So I don't see anything like special that they've done really.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a B as well. Just retaining the guys you needed to. I don't know if, like you said, Nick, I don't know if this team is as, always with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be feared, but I don't know if they're going to be viewed as, Super Bowl favorites coming into the years like they were in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that'll really move the needle.
So the offensive line I still think is an issue, but retain the guys you needed to, so not too shabby. All right. Next team in the AFC West, we got the Chargers. They went 11-6 in Jim Harbaugh's first year, and they re-signed Khalil Mack. They let go of Joey Bosa. They signed Mekhi Becton for 2 years, $20 million. Brought in Dante Jackson for 2 years, $13 million. Brought in Najee Harris for 1 year, $5 million, and brought back Mike Williams after a couple of years or a year or two off. So they did a couple things. So Nick,
they're gonna get a C from me, I think. Mekhi Becton is a solid signing. Khalil Mack is getting up there in age, but he's still a quality edge rusher. I don't really know why they brought Mike Williams back, but they did.
Cool.
They got Najee Harris. I think we overhate on Najee Harris. Because, even though when you watch him play, he doesn't look like a great running back, he still finds a way to get 1,000 yards every year. So, that might be an improvement for them, but it's not going to, make them contenders, I don't think. So, I don't hate any of their moves, but I don't really love any of their moves either. So, I'll give them a C.
Yeah, I think I might stick with the B minus that I gave the Chiefs here. I always like offensive line additions, and I think he's a good one. So Najee Harris, I think, is, I would say, a pretty significant upgrade in the running back room. So really, yeah, the move that I really didn't get was the Mike Williams move. I don't think that does anything for them, but those are the two that I like. So and with Jim Harbaugh, you're going to win games with Jim Harbaugh regardless because he's a winner. He wins. So I'll give him a B minus.
I'm going to be in the middle. I'm going to give him a C plus. I liked Mekhi Becton signing. He was really good for the Eagles as a guard, and I think he's going to help bolster that offensive line that already has their 2 franchise tackles. Now you can beef up the interior with a team that likes to run the ball, and doing so, bringing in Najee Harris, I think, is going to be big. I think, like you said, Nick, Najee, when watching him, you wouldn't think he's very good, but he's been able to churn out a bunch of 1,000-yard seasons, and with a run-first offense and a guy like Jim Harbaugh, I think he could get back to having a really productive year. We saw guys like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards have good years. With Jim Harbaugh, guys who have kind of had a couple of good years, but injuries and other circumstances have kind of hindered them recently. But yeah, Mike Williams doesn't do anything. They still don't have a receiver outside of Loud McConkey that needs to be addressed, but I think overall decent. Getting rid of Joey Bosa was time. Restructuring Khalil Mack helped because he was on a large cap hit. So made a few moves here and there, but they did have, I think they were top 5 in cap space and really didn't do a whole lot. So that's a little bit disappointing, but whatever. All right, we got the Denver Broncos. They went 10-7 last year, and Bo Nix's rookie season. And they signed Evan Ingram to a 2-year, $23 million deal, brought in Dre Greenlaw for 3 years, $35 million, and Talanoa Hufanga for 3 years, $45 million from the 49ers. So, Nick, what do you grade them?
I am actually a big fan of the Denver Broncos offseason so far. I know we talked about Evan Ingram, and I called him dead weight I called him dead weight because of the situation that the Jaguars are in currently. I think Evan Ingram is a great fit for the situation that the Broncos are in currently, where Bo Nix was a solid rookie quarterback. They were a playoff team last year. They were literally a wild card team. Evan Ingram is a positive in the tight end room. He's not a bad tight end. And I'm a big fan of the Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga signings. Hufanga was an All-Pro a couple years ago at safety. Dre Greenlaw missed a bunch of this past year because of the freak Achilles injury he had in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. That's still one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a sport ever. His Achilles just popped as he was trying to run on the field. But I'm a big fan of the Dre Greenlaw signing and the Hufanga signing. I'm a big fan of the Evan Ingram signing. I'm gonna give him an A-. I think they've laid the foundations, and with Sean Payton knowing how to win and Bo Nix being a solid quarterback and them proving me wrong by saying they would be the worst team in the league and then making the playoffs, I think that they've done enough to further the rebuild with Bo Nix and company. So I'm a big fan. I'm gonna give him an A-.
I'm going to second that. I'm going to go with a B+. Yeah, I think they've made some good moves. The Dre Greenlaw thing, I think, is going to be big as long as he comes back from the Achilles okay. Yeah, I think it's really just kind of continuing to build around Bo Nix, who I am high on. So yeah, I think the Broncos have made some pretty good moves so far. We'll see what they go, and we'll see what route they go in the draft. But I think this is a good start for them here.
Yeah, I'm going B+ as well. I really like the Evan Ingram signing. Getting a tight end, which they desperately needed to help Bo Nix. Ingram, when he's healthy, is a really good receiving tight end, big guy, good hands, good route runner. Has just battled injuries last couple of years. Dre Greenlaw, before his Achilles injury, he was this absolute stud at linebacker for the 49ers, but kind of coming off of that, he hadn't really gotten back to his play yet. So you're hoping that in Sean Payton's defense, he can get back to that. And I think Hufanga is good too. I like him. He's young safety, which they needed after getting rid of Justin Simmons. So bringing in Hufanga, I think, is good. So overall, I really like what the Broncos have done. And yeah, I think they're heading in the right direction under Bo Nix. So we'll see who they draft. Because I know they're projected to probably take a tight end, but that might change now with Evan Ingram. So we'll see what they draft and see if they can continue to build with Bo Nix. And our final team of the episode in the AFC West, the Las Vegas Raiders. They finished last in the AFC West, going 4-13. They got a new quarterback. They traded for Geno Smith from the Seahawks. They extended Max Crosby for 3 years, 106. Brought in Jeremy Chin for 2 years, 16 mil. Alex Kappa for 2 years, 11 mil. And Raheem Mostert for a year. But basically, the biggest move is bringing in Geno Smith. So Nick takes home.
I am also a big fan of the Raiders offseason so far. We talked about this earlier, but I think Geno Smith was a great move for them. It's going to be a bridge to where they go hopefully in the future, but with Pete Carroll, I think Geno Smith is going to vastly improve their offense in this upcoming season. I also think getting the Max Crosby deal done was huge for them. And I'm a fan of some of the other stuff they did. I like the Jeremy Chin signing. I like the Stokes and Raheem Mostert signing. Alex Kappa's okay. I think he's a good depth piece. I'm not going to give him as
the triple crown of horribleness.
Yeah, the triple crown of horribleness. That's why I said depth piece. If they give him starting minutes, that's a problem. But what are you gonna do? I'm gonna give him a B+. I don't think they had quite as good of an offseason as the Broncos have had so far, but I don't think they've had a bad offseason at all.
I'll give him a B. I'm a big fan of the Geno Smith signing. We talked about that at length earlier. I think that's going to be a significant upgrade for him. Pete Carroll, that's big, bringing him in as head coach. Jeremy Chin, I think, is going to be helpful for him on the defensive side. I think overall they've done pretty well here at retooling some of the where retooling needs to be had.
I thought Crosby could have been a candidate for a potential trade to a contender this upcoming season if they didn't.
Yeah, that was big. That was big for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, they still got Brock Bowers to roll with, so that's, get him a quarterback that
That's
can
something.
play football. So I think they've had a pretty good offseason so far.
Yeah, I'm going B as well. I like the Max Crosby signing. That needed to happen for them in order for them to, still be, hopefully get back to being a decent team. He's an elite edge rusher and an elite pass rusher. Bringing in Geno Smith is a big upgrade because you go from Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith, who we talked about this in our last episode, but Geno is a little bit older, but he's still probably a top 15 guy. And with Pete Carroll, he's familiar with the system, familiar with the coach, and he should be able to fit right in. And Jeremy Chin, I think, is a solid safety. Raheem Mostert has had his moments, but he's getting older. And the running game was horrible last year for the Raiders. But I think if they can nail the draft, I think this team is going to be rounding out and it'd be a decent team. So I think they're heading in the right direction. Like I said in the previous episode, I still think they need to get a young quarterback to kind of help bridge the gap once Geno is, done with his contract. But I think for now, if we're grading off this offseason free agency wise, I'm going to give them a B. So I think they've been pretty solid with the moves that they've done. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Let us know what your favorite team, what you would grade them. We'd love to hear from you guys. Next episode, we're going to be covering the NFC, so make sure to tune into that and check it out. But that's going to wrap it up for us for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. We'll see you guys next one. Peace.